Now, Long Island's largest radio news team brings you the Associated Press award-winning program, Newsline.
Coming up on Newsline Thursday, October 18th, 2018.
Treasury Secretary Mnuchin cancels his trip to Saudi Arabia.
The Justice Department opens an investigation to the Catholic Church in Pennsylvania.
And new claims against the Catholic Church on Long Island.
In business, YouTube announces a new service for concert fans, and MoviePass is being investigated. I'm Julia Wachtel, and I'll have those stories and more coming up later in the broadcast.
In entertainment, CMT Artists of the Year special made history last night, and an Emmy Award-winning Netflix series is coming to an end. I'm Lauren Brill, and I'll have those stories later in the broadcast.
The Islanders are away tonight in Los Angeles, and the Red Sox look to advance to the World Series. I'll have all that and more later on in the broadcast.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Danielle Solkoski.
And I'm Harrison Grubb. We begin tonight's broadcast in Washington. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin announced today he will not participate in a high-profile investor conference in Saudi Arabia amid growing controversy over dissident journalist Jamal Khashoggi's disappearance and apparent killing. Mnuchin originally planned to go, but according to a senior administration official, he changed his mind mainly because of today's withdrawal from several of his European counterparts, including ministers from France and the UK. Both Mnuchin and Trump had been waiting to see what other countries would do before deciding themselves. Mnuchin announced his decision shortly after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo briefed President Trump on his visit earlier this week to Riyadh to discuss the Khashoggi case. Pompeo urged patience with the Saudi investigation, telling reporters that he advised the presidents to give the Saudis, quote, a few more days.
I told President Trump this morning that we ought to give them a few more days to complete that so that we too have a complete understanding of the facts surrounding that, at which point we can make decisions about how or if the United States should respond to the incident surrounding Mr. Khashoggi.
An administration official told CNN no other government officials will attend next week's summit in Mnuchin's place.
The U.S. Justice Department has opened an investigation into child sexual abuse within the Roman Catholic Church in Pennsylvania. This is according to two people familiar with the probe who claim federal prosecutors have served subpoenas on dioceses across the state that seek sensitive files and testimony from church leaders. The two people are not authorized to discuss the investigation. They spoke to the Associated Press only on the condition of anonymity. The subpoenas following a state grand jury report in August detailing hundreds of allegations of children being sexually abused by priests in dioceses across the state. Pennsylvania's Attorney General says no state charges could be filed due to legal time limits.
John Salveson claims he warned the Roman Catholic Church nearly 40 years ago about the priests who abused him at a parish on Long Island, but no one listened. A lawsuit filed on behalf of the second victim alleges the same priest transferred to Florida and went on to abuse a child at his new parish. The lawsuit, which was filed on Tuesday in Jacksonville against the Diocese of Rockville Center in St. Petersburg, alleges Reverend Robert Hunicke abused the then 9-year-old Mark Cattell in Tampa Bay in 1981 after the priest was transferred there. Salveson continuously warned church officials in writing that Hunicke sexually abused him for years, beginning in 1969 while the priest served at St. Dominic Catholic Church in Oyster Bay. Cattell's lawsuit argues because the Rockville Center Diocese sent a priest who was known to have abused boys in Florida, they are also responsible for the abuse he committed there.
Coming up after your Newsline business report, we have an update on Long Island campaign funds and an exclusive interview with Jonah Goldberg from the Hofstra Votes campaign. But first, your live and local traffic and weather update. WRHU News Time is 5:33.
Newsline. Traffic.
Starting out on the Northern State Parkway, we're looking at delays of up to 37 minutes, all heading eastbound towards Smithtown. Shifting to the Island Parkway, there's a 45-minute slowdown southbound from the Whitestone Expressway to the Southern State Parkway. Now to the LIE, there's currently an accident westbound between exit 57 and the Sagticos Parkway that has the left and center lanes blocked. On the rails, there are delays on the Oyster Bay and Port Jefferson lines. However, all other lines on the LIRR are running on schedule. Up in the sky, flights at Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK are all experiencing delays due to high wind speed, so please double-check with your carrier before heading out tonight. It is currently a crisp 51 degrees and sunny outside of our studios here in Hempstead. Tomorrow, expect sunny skies once again with a high of 60 and a low of 54. With your Newsline traffic and weather update, I'm Jake Diamond, and I'll have another up-to-minute report later in the broadcast.
Newsline. Business news.
In business, the media platform YouTube announced today that the service is teaming up with Eventbrite to encourage YouTube users to buy concert tickets directly from music video pages. This is combined with a similar deal with Ticketmaster, which means that YouTube now has partnerships covering 70% of the US ticketing market. YouTube has announced in a blog post that when people watch videos from the YouTube official artist channels, users will now be able to see Eventbrite ticket listings for performances across the country. YouTube currently has 1.9 billion users logging in every month. However, it is unclear how many people are using music for the platform. Also, unlike Spotify, YouTube does not have the ability to pinpoint artists' most devoted listeners and market prices to them specifically. MoviePass is being investigated by the New York Attorney General's office on allegations that it misled investors. The parent company, Helios and Matheson of New York, have said on the investigation that they believe, quote, "Our public disclosures have been complete, timely, and truthful, and we have not misled investors," end quote. The company has been struggling economically and are facing class action lawsuits. The lawsuits are filed on behalf of investors claiming the company did not disclose aspects of the business model that were unsustainable. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has said today that it is opening a preliminary investigation into over 54,000 Ford Motor pickup trucks. The investigation is due to receiving 5 complaints that tailgates had unexpectedly opened while the vehicles were still in motion. The agency is looking at the 2017 model year 5250 and 5350 Super Duty pickup trucks. The investigation will determine if the issues poses an unreasonable risk to safety. And now for your closing numbers. It was another red day on the stock market. The Dow Jones lost 327 points, finishing with 25,379. NASDAQ dropped 158 points, ending with 7,485, and S&P lost 40 points, closing the day with 2,769. For Newsline Business, I'm Julia Wachtel.
WRHU News Time is 5:37. 2 Democrats challenging incumbent Republican congressmen on Long Island have raised more money in the past 3 months than their opponents have. In the 1st District, Perry Gershon raised $1.3 million compared to Lee Zeldin's $730,000. However, Zeldin has more cash on hand because of previous contributions. The Republican has $1.8 million left, while Gershon has $535,000. In the 2nd District, it's the same story. Challenger Leoba Gretchen Shirley raised $1.3 million in the last 3-month period, while incumbent Republican Peter King raised just over $200,000. But King has $2.8 million on hand, while Gretchen Shirley has $274,000. The extra money can fund more television and radio commercials.
The debate for New York's 2nd Congressional District between Republican incumbent Congressman Peter King and his Democrat opponent Leoba Shirley will take place at Plainedge High School tonight at 6 p.m. The event will be held in the high school's auditorium in cooperation with News 1 FiOS. The 2018 midterm election is on November 6th this year. Polls close at 9 p.m. in New York, and make sure to check out the Hofstra Votes Live campaign here on WRHU and across all Hofstra media platforms.
Conservative Speaker Jonah Goldberg came to Hofstra University yesterday to discuss his new book in today's political climate. WRHU's Assistant News Director Jenny Goldstein has the report.
You know, I don't want to make light of people's mental health issues, but suicide's a choice. And part of my argument is that a lot of the problems that we have, we are choosing to have. And if you can choose to make a mistake, you can unchoose to make that mistake. I don't say it's the death of the West. Death is not reversible. I don't say it's the end. I don't say it's a decline. Those are cold things that are deriving personal agency and choice. Suicide is a choice that people make in despair, and we can choose not to go the way we're going.
That was Jonah Goldberg, a syndicated political columnist, Fox News contributor, and best-selling author, discussing his newest book, The Suicide of the West. He says we make the choice as to whether we will live up to our ideals.
It's a choice to essentially turn our back on a lot of the principles that are the best version of ourselves. You know, I'll give you an example. For years, we used to teach that the founding fathers were hypocrites for believing that all men are created equal, while they had, we had slaves and we had, different rules for women and all of that. And that's true. They were hypocrites. But one of the great things about being a hypocrite is that you can't be a hypocrite unless you're violating an ideal or a principle. So when Martin Luther King spoke at the March on Washington, his argument was to American people that you people, white America, are not living up to the best story of America that you tell yourselves this country is about. Now, on countless college campuses across the country, the argument is that the whole idea of equality is a bad ideal. Used to have all sorts of arguments about where to draw the line about free speech. Now the argument is that free speech in and of itself is a bad thing. We are choosing to take the things that once made this country great and saying that they're corrupt and backward.
Goldberg argues that the divide between political parties is worse than ever.
Partisanship has arguably never been worse in the last century in terms of people feeling passionately about whether they have an R or a D after the name, reds versus blues, all that garbage. And at the same time, the parties have never been weaker. We no longer have healthy institutions like faith, family, organized religion, schools, all those sorts of things. People start falling back on human nature and creating their own kind of tribes. And so for the first time in American history, people have invested in being Republican and Democrat as if it's almost a religious affiliation.
What is the best way for us to mend the polarization between Democrats and Republicans?
There are public policy solutions that I believe in. I mean, the one thing that I believe in the most passionately is that we need to push as much political power down to the most local level possible. One of the reasons why we have populism on the left and the right is there are a lot of people, for good reasons and bad, who think that their lives are being controlled by unseen foreign forces of globalists or the establishment or whatever. If you send power down to the most local level possible, the powers that be are no longer abstractions, right? It's Todd and Phil and Sarah and Beth. It's people. They know them. I think the biggest problem we have in politics today is that we are following national politics as if it's a form of entertainment. Other than that, I'm a big believer in teaching about gratitude, but we don't teach gratitude in this country. We teach the opposite of gratitude, which is entitlement and resentment. We teach people that the world owes them something from almost the day they're born, and that they should just rely on their feelings, and their feelings always tell them that they deserve more than they have, and that is a suicidal choice too.
Once again, that was WRHU's Jenny Goldstein with Jonah Goldberg.
Some Nassau County residents could soon be dealing with more airplane noise overhead due to a renovation planned at John F. Kennedy International Airport. An information session was held last night in Garden City about the proposed changes. Officials with the Port Authority and FAA explained the asphalt on one of the runways is deteriorating. That runway happens to handle almost half of the JFK arrivals. The plan is to close that runway from April to the middle of November next year and replace it with concrete. Officials say during construction they expect more noise in North Valley Stream and Valley Stream because of an increase in flights overhead. Residents say they are furious. As a result, the FAA says airplane noise were temporarily reduced in the 5 towns area. The Port Authority is taking public comments through October 29.
The Department of Justice says for the first time in 5 years, the Suffolk County Police Department is making positive strides in 2 critical areas related to its interactions with the Latino community. The Department of Justice also stated there are still 3 categories of concern before they are in full compliance of a settlement agreement that mandates reforms, which is a result of a hate crime killing of an Ecuadorian immigrant a decade ago. The settlement agreement came in January 2014 and was set to last for 3 years. However, the DOJ is continuing to monitor the police department because some reforms have still not been met. The report says there remains a persistent mistrust of the department. Police Commissioner Geraldine Hart says the department continues to make significant progress towards fully complying with the agreement.
Authorities in Connecticut continue to investigate the discovery of a dead baby boy found at a garbage and recycling process facility. Police say workers in the city carting and recycling plant in Stamford, Connecticut, found the body of a newborn Tuesday morning as they were sorting through recyclable material. Authorities determined the recyclable material in which the newborn was found originated either in Stamford or Greenwich, Connecticut, Somers or Oyster Bay in the Long Island area, or Andover, Massachusetts. Stamford police say an autopsy will be conducted to determine how the boy died and if he was a stillborn. Connecticut has a baby safe haven law which allows a parent to bring an infant 30 days or younger to a hospital emergency room without fear of prosecution for abandonment.
The age of the homecoming king and queen at Stony Brook University is over. Yesterday, the school announced it is shifting to gender-neutral titles for members of its homecoming court. Instead of crowning a homecoming king and queen this fall, the university will choose 3 Stony Brook Royals, who can identify as any gender. 10 students have been selected as finalists for the 2018 homecoming court. Its 3 members will be crowned this weekend.
Coming up after your Newsline entertainment report, another arrest out of Washington. And we hear an exclusive interview on the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But first, your live and local traffic update. WRHU News Time is 5:45.
Newsline. Traffic.
On the Southern State Parkway, we're looking at a minor delay heading eastbound from the Northern State Parkway to the 135 Seaford Oyster Bay. To the Cross Island Parkway, there's a 42-minute slowdown southbound from the Whitestone Expressway to the Southern State Parkway, so leaving extra travel time when heading home would be a good idea. On the rails, there's now only a delay on the Ronkonkoma line as all other lines are running on schedule. Up in the sky, flights at Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK are all still experiencing delays due to high wind speed, so please leave extra travel time when heading out this evening. With the Newsline Traffic Update, I'm Jake Diamond.
Newsline. Entertainment.
The 2018 CMT Artists of the Year special aired last night and made history with the unusual list of those honored. The annual ceremony intentionally honored only women. Those honored were Carrie Underwood, Miranda Lambert, Maren Morris, Kelsey Ballerini, Hilary Scott, Karen Fairchild, and Kimberly Schlapman. This was the first in the event's 8-year history to feature an all-female list of honorees. The 90-minute special included performances from those honored who collaborated with Gladys Knight, Tori Kelly, Brandi Carlile, and Alison Krauss. The artists did not hold back about frustrations with the country music community. One segment featured the singers calling out country radio, which is known as the launching pad for success in the genre, for not playing female artists. Karen Fairchild and Kimberly Schlapman's acceptance speech mentioned this frustration. Fairchild listed 35 up-and-coming artists. She said they are there for you to support and play on the radio, if you want to. The last honoree of the night, Carrie Underwood, highlighted the night's overall message in her speech. Talent and hard work, not gender, is why they are being honored. Emmy Award-winning series Orange is the New Black will come to an end with its 7th season. The Netflix series, which is based on Piper Kerman's memoir about her years in prison, details the trials and tribulations of female prison inmates. By its 2nd season, the show became Netflix's most-watched series. The show revealed the news yesterday through a video on Twitter. The clips feature longtime cast members reminiscing about what they'll miss most and thanking the fans. For Newsline Entertainment, I'm Lauren Brill.
WRHU News Time is 5:47. A senior Treasury Department employee is under arrest, charged with leaking highly sensitive information about suspects in the high-profile investigation into Russia's meddling in the presidential election. The Justice Department says Natalie Mayflower Sowers Edwards allegedly, quote, betrayed her position of trust by leaking confidential banking reports on the Russian embassy and suspects charged in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russian collusion probe. Federal prosecutors said the 40-year-old Edwards provided a journalist with confidential material, including suspicious activity reports on former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort and political consultant Rick Gates. The Justice Department did not release the reporter's identity, but documents listed nearly a dozen articles published by BuzzFeed News over the past year and a half.
The former president of the U.S. Gymnastics has been arrested. Steve Penny was taken into custody last night by U.S. Marshals in Tennessee for allegedly tampering with evidence in the case of disgraced team doctor Larry Nassar. Penny was indicted by a grand jury on felony charges on September 28th. He allegedly removed documents from the Caroli Ranch, the U.S. Gymnastics training facility in Huntsville, Texas, that were related to Nassar's activity at the gym. The U.S. Marshals issued a press release saying the removal of documents was done for the purpose of impairing the ongoing investigation. Penny allegedly ordered the documents be sent to him at the U.S. Gymnastics headquarters in Indianapolis. Authorities say those documents have never been recovered. Penny is awaiting extradition to Texas. He faces up to 10 years in prison if convicted.
Today is the 70th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights. Hofstra University held a day of panels about this important landmark. Danielle Zolkowski has more from the Human Trafficking panel.
Today is the 70th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights. Makini Chisholm Straker is a doctor at Mount Sinai Hospital and works to end human trafficking. She explains why the document is important and how she has dedicated her career to helping people.
In Article 1, it's there. We all are human, and that is that we have basic rights as humans. And then again, thinking about Article 4 and that slavery and these synonyms and like terms like trafficking and debt peonage, all of these things are not good. And that is a globally accepted, at least on paper, that's a globally accepted understanding.
Doctors have a unique relationship with their patients. This allows them to be on the front lines when helping people that are victims of human trafficking.
Do you trust that we're there to serve? And so I think that's a unique opportunity for us to make people feel safe, that they can tell us when they're ready. the key is for us to be ready for when they're ready. So if we haven't already developed relationships with our community-based organizations so that we can refer people for the things that they need, that they tell us they need, then we're not ready to hear that. So we have to get ready so that our patients can get what they need when they're ready.
Dr. Chisholm Straker explains some of the misconceptions she finds in her work with human trafficking.
I think a common misconception, despite popular misconception, labor trafficking is the most common form of trafficking. People of all genders are trafficked. A lot of funding for prevention work and intervention work goes into serving survivors of sex trafficking and women and girls. And that certainly is a need, but it is not the only need. Unfortunately, that's where the majority of funding is found. And so if you are a survivor of labor trafficking, if you are a man, if you are genderqueer, it's very hard to find the support that you need and that you deserve, because we haven't funded it properly.
Moving forward, Dr. Chisholm Straker says there are some changes that everybody can make to help the fight to end human trafficking.
In the 90s, Nike was sort of found out as using exploited labor for their products. And it was actually, in the United States anyway, college campuses uprising against using Nike products in the bookstores, in the school bookstores, that had a huge impact on Nike changing that practice. And so that's one way that, student organizations might organize. If you can participate in supporting something that's fair trade, that tells that company that they're doing a good job, and it also tells other companies, you lost money because you didn't do XYZ.
For WRHU, on the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I'm Danielle Zolkowski. President Donald Trump tweeted an all-caps threat to shut down the southern U.S. border if Mexico does not stop the, quote, onslaught of a caravan of migrants fleeing Honduras. The president placed the blame on Democratic Party leaders who he says, quote, are doing little to stop this large flow of people, including many criminals. Trump also suggested migrants hoping to enter the U.S. are linked to crime and drugs that he says are, quote, pouring in. The president's tweets come after 2,000 Honduran migrants seeking to live in the U.S. resumed their travels just hours after the president warned in a tweet that, quote, anybody entering the United States illegally will be arrested and detained. Yesterday, Trump also threatened to cut U.S. aid dollars to Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador.
A heated argument took place today in the West Wing between Chief of Staff John Kelly and National Security Advisor John Bolton. According to CNN, the disagreement began over a recent surge in border crossings and quickly became a shouting match. The ordeal exposed a bitter disagreement between two of President Trump's top aides for the last several weeks. Trump, who's unhappy with the increasing number of migrants, took Bolton's side during the argument. While arguing is frequent in the supposedly divided West Wing, a source familiar with the clash equated it with a falling out.
President Donald Trump was more instrumental than previously known in scrapping plans to move the FBI headquarters out of Washington to the D.C. suburbs, according to newly released internal government emails. The decision could have financial benefits for the president, whose own hotel is located a block away, critics say. Documents were released today by House Democrats in a letter to General Services Administrator Emily Murphy that suggests she misled Congress about the president's involvement, while Sarah Sanders said that the House Democrats have it all wrong. In a statement, she said the president wanted to save the government money, and also FBI leadership did not want to move its headquarters. A financial analysis conducted by the GSA's Inspector General, however, concluded that constructing a new FBI building in downtown D.C. would actually be more costly than relocating the bureau.
Former Vice President Joe Biden says he thinks it's too early to make a decision about whether he'll run for president in 2020. Polls suggest he is the top choice to oppose President Trump. On CBS This Morning, Biden explained what factors will go into his decision.
I think about whether or not I should run based on very private decisions relating to my family and the loss of my son and what I want to do with the rest of my life. But I don't think of it in terms of can I win? Will I lose? That's not part of the calculation.
The 75-year-old also says his age would be a legitimate issue if he were to run in 2020. President Trump is 3 years younger. Biden says he thinks people are going to judge it on his vitality.
If I were to run, I think they're going to judge me on my vitality. Can I still run up the steps of Air Force Two? Am I still in good shape? Do I have all my faculties? Am I energetic? I think it's totally legitimate for people to ask those questions.
Coming up, your live and local traffic and weather update. But first, your Newsline sports break. WRHU News Time is 5:55.
Sports update.
The New York Islanders will face the LA Kings tonight at the Staples Center. Both teams are entering this game with 2 wins and 3 losses. Puck drop is set for 10:30 p.m. You can catch all the action right here on the New York Islanders radio network. The Pride is off tonight, but the volleyball and women's field hockey teams will be back in action tomorrow. The women's field hockey team will host James Madison at 3 p.m., and the volleyball team will host Towson at 7. You can catch all the action right here on the Hofstra Pride Sports Network. In the MLB, the Boston Red Sox and the Houston Astros will play Game 5 of the American League Championship Series tonight at Minute Maid Park. The Red Sox lead the series 3-1 and are looking to advance to the World Series with tonight's game. Pitching for the Red Sox is left-hander David Price, who is 0-1 in the postseason with a 9.95 ERA. Price has not had a win as a postseason starter in his 11 starts. Starting for the Astros is right-hander Justin Verlander, who is 2-0 in the postseason with a 3.18 ERA. Verlander is 4-1 in potential elimination starts. First pitch is set for 8:09 p.m. In the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals will host the Denver Broncos for Thursday Night Football. Both teams are third in their division. The Cardinals have a 1-5 record, and the Broncos have a 2-4 record. Kickoff is set for 8:20 p.m. With your Newsline Sports Update, I'm Michaela Cruciani.
Newsline. Traffic.
There is an accident on the Grand Central Parkway eastbound approaching 69th Road, which has the left lane blocked. To the Van Wyck Expressway, there's a 50-minute slowdown southbound from the Whitestone Expressway to the JFK Expressway. On the rails, all lines on the LIRR are running on schedule. Up in the sky, flights at Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK are all still experiencing delays due to high wind speed, so again, please double-check with your carrier before heading out this evening. It is currently a chilly 50 degrees and clear outside of our studios here in Hempstead. Now for your extended weather forecast. Tomorrow, expect clear and sunny skies once again with a high of 60 and a low of 54. Over the weekend, expect partly cloudy skies as temperatures will range from the high 40s to the mid 60s, so you might want to bundle up. For Newsline Traffic and Weather, I'm Jake Diamond.
And that'll do it for tonight's edition of Newsline. Many thanks to the entire WRHU news team. Our engineer this evening is Grant Francis.
Stay tuned for the Rock and Roll Oasis, only here on your 2-time Marconi Award-winning college radio station, 88.7 FM, Radio Hofstra University.
For Newsline, I'm Harrison Grubb.
And I'm Danielle Zolkowski. Thanks for listening and have a great night.